We made an extension that you can share with your users where they would input, some sort of a search criteria. Let's say you define a phone number or an email, and they get a text box and they enter that phone number or email. Now, if that phone number or email exists in your table, they are redirected to a URL that is associated with the record that is found in your table. If it doesn't, they are redirected to a different URL that you define. In our case, what we wanted to do is we wanted our users to be able to edit their records if they enter a phone number that exists in our database. And if they enter a phone number that does not exist in our table, they are instead redirected to a different URL where they can create that record. So let me show you what I mean here. I'm going to enter a phone number that does in fact exist in the table, and I am now redirected to a different extension of ours, update existing records with Airtable form. And essentially, I'm redirected to a URL associated with the record, which is this URL right here. And that URL allows me to make changes to that record. So I'm going to go ahead and make a change here. And what I expect now is to go to that table and see that that record got updated. Now let's see what it would look like if we entered a phone number that actually did not exist in our table. So I put this in here. Like you can see, I am instead redirected to a registration flow. So the idea here is essentially get the users that already exist in your table to edit their records, get new users to create their records. Now let me show you how you would set this up. Start by adding your user API key, follow the blue URL to find that, then set your base, set your table, and then you'll be able to choose the lookup fields. In my case, I want to do phone, but you can also do multiple. Well, let's say if I do a phone and an email, now the user has to match both, right? So it's kind of added security if you'd like that. And then I would choose the redirect URL. This is the URL that the user is taken to if if their search criteria actually matches a record. Now, in our case, it's update form, and then the fallback redirect URL is the URL that the users are taken to if the search criteria did not match any records. So in our case, we wanted to send them to that registration flow, right? So let's take them to that form. Got this form URL right here. I will paste that here and hit save. Now you'll share this share URL with your users. The users would land on a page like this. Let's go ahead and enter that phone number again. There you go. So they are taken to that URL that I mentioned earlier. Now let's try the second case where the phone number doesn't exist and they are taken to the registration flow. Now, we've decided to choose this example because it made sense to us, but this is pretty much a tool that can be used for any example where you want your users to be redirected to some URL that exists on record.